Good morning, just good morning or good afternoon, depending on the location you are joining. And thank you for joining us today to MDSS online seminar. And today's topic is substantial changes, Annex IX 2.4. And we are going to try to give a logical approach, mainly because we are seeing a lot of questions on what is considered substantial changes for notified bodies under the MDR and IVDR or IVDR. So we'll try to bring a little bit of light onto this topic. As you can see here on the screen, MDSS, 30 years in business, actually 31. This is a slide for 31 years. This is a slide from last year from our roadshow that we did. It needs to be updated, but still more than 30 years in business already. My name is Carla. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing at MDSS. And as I mentioned here, more than 30 years in business. What we do, we are a regulatory consulting and in-country representation service provider, headquartered in Germany. So that's the one that turns 31, but with offices in Australia and the new openly couple of months old office, New Zealand also, and then Switzerland, United States, United Kingdom, and for now we are also discussing some partnerships with some other areas of the world. So as you may have seen in our latest communication, so that's something also that we are going to expand. ISO certificate, as I mentioned, business in-country representation. So for the EU, US, so EU EC rep, EU authorized representative, US agent, UK responsible person, Swiss authorized representative, Australian sponsor, and New Zealand sponsor. And as I mentioned, also some consulting services, be our sister company in Germany, and mainly our office in the US, where we support with everything that is to do with FDA, communication, submission, preparation of 510K, and so on and so on. As you may notice, the seminar is being recorded and is going to be made available in our website, the recording, as well as the presentation will be provided together with the recording to all the participants. So don't worry about that. In terms of questions, if you have any question during the presentation, you can use or the chat or the Q&A section. I will keep an eye on it, and we'll have several minutes at the end of the presentation to go through all your questions. So feel free to write anything that you want. Keep in mind that you can ask the questions anonymously or identify yourself. That's up to you. And you can also, if you want, to raise your hand and pose the question live, let's say it like that. I will just unmute you. And if you also want to turn on your camera, I will also give you that possibility up to the participants. But now, without further delay, let's introduce today's speaker that I think everyone already knows him. So Ludger Müller is going to present this topic today. So he's the owner of MDSS GmbH, the German office company, but he's the founder of all the other companies that we have, MDSS Consulting, Switzerland, USA, UK, Australia, and New Zealand. He has a more than 2 decades career in the medical device regulatory industry and has played a very important role in the compliance strategies and influencing regulatory frameworks across global markets. He is the founding member and currently chairing the Association of European Authorized Representatives, the EAER, also founding member of the UK Responsible Person Association, member of the Ethics Commission in Lower Saxony, so where the German company is located here in Germany, member for many years of RAPS, the Regulatory Affairs Association, mainly with a big presence in the US, but now also with increasing the presence here in Europe with the RAPS Euro convergency that just took place last week here in my hometown, Portugal. Also the founding member of the RAPS Germany chapter, And currently, on behalf of the AAR, and as a member state of the group, stakeholder group of European Union Medical Device Coordination Group. So all these MDCG guidance, that papers and papers and pages that are being published. So Ludger is also a stakeholder on that on behalf of the European Association of Authorized Representatives. And now I'm going to pass the word to Ludger. As I mentioned, any questions you might have, please use chat, Q&A. I will keep an eye on it, or just raise your hand and we'll go through all the questions that you might have. So feel free, this is a very interactive seminar that we want to have, so feel free to post questions. We really want to get into details and see the struggles that manufacturers are having at the moment. So thank you for joining us, and Ludger, yeah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Carla, for the nice introduction. 30 years. I started my regulatory career with TV Rhineland, notified body in the US, 30 years ago, February 1996. So it's an anniversary this year. So I know I can say 30 plus years. With all the activities you mentioned, it's very interesting. I was asked whether I have any time to serve clients, and I just want to mention this is all in that area. This is my hobby. I'm doing this day and night. Not. I do still have a private life. Don't get me wrong, but it touches every time the medical devices, IVD products, and want to make sure that products reach the patient and are getting there. So one aspect which drives me is to apply the least burdensome approach, and some may call it negatively race to the bottom, but I don't think so, because we have the MDR and IVDR. They are really up, and they are very cumbersome, burdensome for manufacturers, and it is absolutely necessary to apply the least burdensome approach, because someone may do and may be more competitive, and that is okay. If anything would not be okay to do, then the regulation would need to be updated if the products would not be safe. So the least burdensome approach is actually the thing. We are being approached by clients in terms of Annex IX 2.4, when to inform the notified body. And I'm going biological approach. And what I learned early on when I started my career at a notified body auditor, and things are different. And here's a disclaimer. Others have a different interpretation. So what the goal is today is really to look into the regulation, to really decipher what is written in the regulation and what should be applied, and then maybe to come to the conclusion on how to best communicate and do that, since there are different opinions, and there may be then approaches which will be costly and burdensome to manufacturers. And this is one area where clients recently have us approached more often, and I think that is coming along even more, and their guidance are coming out, and I want to make sure to communicate what the MDR is actually stating, and therefore the logical approach here. Let's see whether I can go to the next. So disclaimer, certainly disclaimer. If you run into difficulties, please check the MDR, IVDR, and as well your system, your product. That is important. This is just an indication and a guidance on how things could be looked at, and an approach which I think is the actual logical approach. So let's start with the dialogue. Dialogue was heavily discussed, and this is one example which just blew me away, that notified bodies would not talk to manufacturers for quite some time. And it was stated, yeah, but whatever we say is going to be considered consulting, blaming the competent authorities that they did not allow them to apply any dialogue with the manufacturer. So there's nobody to blame. Everyone wanted to do it right after the scandals and so forth. The thing is, really look at what the regulation is stating. And the MDCG document came out suggesting what is it, constructive dialogue, and whatever is in the MDCG should be in compliance with the MDR. And it is actually in the MDR that the notified bodies are required to outline, explain, to have a dialogue with the manufacturer on the requirements. And but be mindful, because the dialogue may as well be difficult. So we're going right into the thing, because when a notified body or an auditor may not know, then the dialogue can be quite expensive. So let me ask the question, and let's maybe, since this is a new format for us, the webinar format from Teams, we have upgraded. If you could use the reaction button, reagieren in German, reaction button, whether there has been discussion on substantial changes, and that the notified body basically outlined, yeah, just submit and we will tell you whether that is substantial. Thumbs up or smiley if they were clearly telling you what needs to be, what information they need to have, and if that was clear from the beginning. Thumbs up, substantial changes to the quality management system or the device range covered. If you could give me some thumbs up that the notified body had difficulties to explain, or smiley that it indeed worked well, and they were clear identifying what needs to be done. So we see one. We have a couple more. So I think there's a smiley, right? Yeah, there's a smiley face if that was really clear from the beginning of what information the notified body needs to be informed. Okay, we got some thumbs up. Substantial changes to the quality system. So when I had the recent in-house seminar, I asked, would you know what to submit? Yeah, that's very difficult. We actually asked the notified body, and we did not get a straight answer. So the dialogue then is what has been communicated. Here we have a change, and to present that to the notified body, the notified body auditor basically saying, it's very difficult to be asking that on the spot. But and here it comes, this is a very difficult communication. If you miss a substantial change to tell us, then it may have severe consequences. So the bias is, you're being scared. If you miss it, you may lose your certificate. That certainly you cannot afford, because that's where the power of the notified body is. So the changes are being explained and then being outlined. And what does the manufacturer try to do? To downgrade this explanation, his information, what he is providing, that it's not substantial. And the notified body certainly task is to now define whether this is substantial or not. Now, if we go now to the actual required, so this conversation certainly, if that is being done all the time, submitting all kinds of changes can be costly, because there has to be some conversation, and the notified body's hourly rate is not trivial anymore. This is not very, the latest I did here was 800 euros. So that blew me away. So be mindful. There are maybe as well other notified bodies. In my opinion, the regulation is crystal clear, and let's dive into that. That's the whole Annex IX 2.4, and let's start with the first sentence. The manufacturer in question shall inform the notified body which approved the quality management system of any plan for substantial changes to the quality management system or the device range covered. So it is stated the manufacturer. So it also clearly identifies the manufacturer's responsibility to get to know what are substantial. Right? So the design process input, and as well the quality system implementation risk assessment probably should have some indication if we do any changes, a checkbox, is this substantial or not, and then going through the evaluation process, what is substantial. And now the question is, where do you find what defines substantial? And there's no definition, just to be clear. There's no definition on substantial, and there are many other terms which are not defined. And therefore, everyone comes back with like, yeah, it's not defined, it's very difficult, and it is like not clear in the MDR, and it would be great to have guidance. Everyone is asking for additional paper to explain something what is actually written already in the MDR. So if we go to the next system, so who needs to identify the substantial changes? I already mentioned that. Who needs to inform the notified body of the substantial changes? The manufacturer. So it is the responsibility of the manufacturer. And here's the first aspect. It's not the dialogue, what people thinking is a dialogue, is this change substantial? And the notified body comes back, yes or no, that would be actually consulting. The dialogue is clearly defined here, and it's actually already the process. The manufacturer defines and submits, here are changes which are substantial. And what does not need to be the notified body being informed of is minor changes or even major changes, as long as they're not substantial. So substantial is something heavy, right? It's already substantial. The term itself already comes up with the information. So in order to define what is substantial, the clause gives a clear indication. And this is not reading in between the line. The middle part is being whitened out, so that's still the whole clause, but I took out the middle part because it talks about what to do in terms of getting there. But the end says, the last sentence says, the approval of any substantial changes to the quality management system or the device range cover shall take the form of a supplement to the EU Quality Management System certificate. So a substantial change needs to be approved. Yeah, and also the notified body has to issue a supplement to the EC Quality Management System certificate. And here I'd like to be clear, we are talking about class 2A, class 2B, non-implantable, lower risk class products, and that's a majority of products. We are like probably 60 to 80% of products are of this lower risk class, and it needs to be clarified of what the notified body needs to be informed, because things are changing all the time, and a clear indication would be great. So having said that, the approval, so substantial changes will have to be approved. It is not like this email confirming, yeah, you can go ahead, there is no concern, right? That's not an approval. That's a notified body auditor giving you an opinion. In a supplement to certificate, everyone is clear on that. That has to go through the certification process, because it is at a high level, and only that counts. We were exposed in the early days that manufacturers were recommended for certification, but not being certified. And then the question was, hey, can you confirm that we will get the certificate? And the auditor will still write, yes, we have submitted all your information. We came to the conclusion that you're recommended for certification. That's all an auditor can say during this process. So if the evaluation comes back on that level, that basically doesn't mean much, right? It's nice, but it could also cross the border of consulting, especially if a manufacturer submits information. We have a change here. What do you think whether this would be substantial? And that would be probably consulting. Why do I outline all of this? Submitting information which is not substantial takes the resources, is not okay because it takes resources away from other areas, design and other regulatory activities you have to take care of if that is not needed. But one other thing I want to mention here as well. The misinterpretation of one manufacturer, where I was a little bit surprised, if we don't have to inform the notified body, we will just write a letter to file, and if we have to submit, if we have to inform the notified body, we will evaluate. That's not the case. Any change will have to be evaluated, whether that's okay or not. It has to go through the design process. If you're talking a product change, if you're talking quality system update change, will have to go through the process in order to determine whether the changes are having an effect on the product, etc. And one other comment I do hear whether and that comes from the old guideline as well, and I will point out why that is, that anything what affects the safety of the product, that's definitely for higher risk class product, but the design process certainly should cover all aspects for lower risk class products. And now you may have heard it, lower risk class product changes should be as well of a lower risk, right? So that by itself changes which are being done, if there's a safety concern for a product, then it would be a lower risk class safety concern. And the evaluation, the conformity assessment procedure should be able to take care of it. So the example was given by a talk, yeah, packaging change normally wouldn't be a problem. Everything depends. Also, packaging can be a safety concern, and that is one example which probably should not be notified because it would be very interesting. It would lead to a supplement to the certificate. That is not on the certificate. So what would be the process maybe now moving forward? If there is uncertainty with the manufacturer, what the notified body needs to be informed of. I guess I would take a couple of examples from the past, what has been the notified body has been informed of, and what the responses were. If there was no supplement to the certificate, then it can be safely assumed it didn't need to be approved, and it was not substantial, because the logic here is, and this where we started the conversation, the substantial aspect comes from the latter part because it would lead to an approval. So we do have three options. So again, logical approach. The changes are substantial and they are approved. The changes are substantial and the notified body says this is not approved. The notified body does not issue a supplement, but says you can go ahead. Then it's not substantial. And I guess I would make a clear note in my procedure using one more example of an aspect which was not substantial and where in the future we will not inform the notified body. Another aspect I would like to communicate here is the conformity assessment procedure requires to have procedures in place, right? The conformity assessment process, which is being approved. The procedure should outline and clarify what are substantial, when to inform the notified body. This is going to be approved by the notified body. Having that approved, you should be in a good position to inform the notified body or not to inform the notified body, because if you follow the procedure, which has been verified, reviewed, audited by the notified body, should give a good indication when to inform the notified body or not. Actually, a clear indication. So I left out the middle part because that is another aspect, but once it is substantial, it becomes clear. But what is very interesting is the notified body shall assess the changes proposed and not after it is implemented. So the changes proposed, that means they need to look at the changes, and then if the changes cannot be approved because it deviates from the requirements, then you need to change the plan and submit most likely again. So we are talking now in the area of substantial changes. So, and then it goes on, determine the need for additional audits and verify whether after those changes, the quality management system still meets the requirements referred to in section 2.2. So this is debatable whether the audit needs to be done on an implemented aspect or on the plan, on the changes proposed. And so the notified body should have all information in terms of the changes which are coming forward. I will provide a couple of examples throughout the talk, and here it becomes very clear. Product range covered. If an additional product range is being considered, the manufacturer should inform the notified body because it is most likely not on the certificate. So it becomes crystal clear if you are having an additional product range which you would like to add to the certificate, and here already we have it, a product range, then it's crystal clear the notified body needs to be informed. And now for Class 2A and Class 2B, the proposal, it depends on how close this is in terms of your quality system and whether you are capable and you're being seen as being capable of doing that, whether an additional audit would be needed for the production line and the technical documentation. But the technical documentation may then be added to the sampling plan. Right. So if the products are very close to what you're doing already and not having a complete different product, but just an addition which is not really covered on your certificate, it may be then that the additional manufacturing process information are being submitted, how it's going to be verified, validated. The QMS documents accordingly are going to be submitted, and based on that, the notified body may issue the certificate. I hear that notified bodies like to audit then, but the audit could as well, the certificate, the supplement could already being issued, and the additional audit could be scheduled very close to the surveillance audit, the next surveillance audit, or maybe an extra audit, but the certificate is already being issued, and once everything is clarified, the product can be placed on the market. That kind of there needs to be a dialogue when that is going to happen. In my opinion, assess the changes proposed. Everything should be clarified beforehand. A supplement should be issued. It depends certainly on the relationship between a manufacturer and a notified body, how much the manufacturer is being trusted to implement all these correctly. If there have been previous major deviations identified with a manufacturer, most likely that may be difficult. If that's a perfect manufacturer, 0 deviations all the time, then there probably can be the assessment can come to the conclusion easier. So that's where there's room for things, but that does not affect whether it's substantial or not. This is when the area is substantial and additional information needs to be provided. So going back to the whole clause, so this is a fictitious certificate created by ChatGPT, and don't look at the details. I only want you to look at the top EU quality management certificate, and then there is a scope, and that's a portable suction unit. And now you have some additional aspect, maybe the product range. The dialogue needs to be really what needs to be on the certificate, and that can be negotiated, right? So making sure that you clearly get the information on the certificate, what you need on the certificate. And here's one recommendation: the broader the scope, the better it is. For Class 2A, the actual intended use does not need to be stipulated. For Class 2B, it needs to be on there. So be mindful of the requirements. And I have not said it, but the guidance for what needs to be, what is substantial, can be found in Annex 12, the minimum requirements for the certificate, and on your certificate itself, because those are where the changes, those are the changes which will cause a supplement because it's not on there, or the vice versa, it needs to be removed because you want to make sure that the product is taken out of the sampling plan, and then that will cause an update on the certificate as well. So then there should be probably a supplement to the EU Quality Management System certificate. And here we see that another code was added. And don't get me wrong, don't look at all the other things. It's all wrong. Yeah. So just to be clear on that, I'm just referring to the importance of the approval process here. So there's another piece of the equation, and Annex 12.4b, the notified body needs to know something, and that's where the notified body needs to be informed, but does not need to approve anything. The notified body shall be able to demonstrate on request which individual devices are covered by the certificate. The notified body shall set up a system that enables the determination of the devices, including their classification, covered by the certificate. So what should be probably being done, and I have seen those forms, a form which is being submitted here, we inform you of a new model which falls under the syringes, infusion pumps, or under the portable suction unit, right? So that there's another device model, etc. So the notified body knows about that. But it would not need an approval if it's covered by the certificate already, because the notified body approved the conformity assessment procedure the manufacturer applies. So meaning they look at the process that the manufacturer is capable of doing, of getting product designed, manufactured, and distributed. Here's the comparison, why the confusion in the past. And here's the story of the old, where notified bodies came from, and in particular, German notified bodies were test houses, like I did when I started with TUV, still a test, and then I moved into auditing. Product expert was as well doing a test. You could qualify then with that. So the old German GS mark, and they basically, once the GS mark was issued, a list of critical component would be created, and the critical component list would then be inspected during a factory inspection. And that was as well where some notified bodies started out what they considered as substantial change. But that was not the concept of Annex II, and I'm referring strictly to Annex II, not to higher risk class or type examination. The manufacturer must inform the notified body, same thing, of substantial changes, but it doesn't talk about the approval via the supplement to the certificate. When I was trained at that time, and that's now a long time ago, we discussed this. And my trainer at that time was crystal clear. If it doesn't affect the certificate, we don't need to be informed. Already at that time. And if you're looking at the guidance documents, it talks about supplement approval already. However, it goes still into the area of details, product safety, etc., etc. But if you read those old guidance documents, NBOC document and recommendation NB-MED document, I have them actually here, those refer as well if product is being, essential requirements are being affected. Those are again to the higher risk class products, but as well they're like they're not 100% clear that it could be applied to lower risk class product. So now here it becomes crystal clear if the certificate is being affected, something what is on there is changing, or something which should be on there and needs to be added, like a new product range or deletion of a product range. Or now let's talk about quality system. If you have in-house production of your product and you source it out and the complete product is produced somewhere else, that probably should be on their certificate, and that will be on the certificate, and that would be covered under the limitation of the certificate. So critical subcontractor may be listed. Sterilization, if that was in-house and not being really added to the certificate, it's being outsourced. Outsourced sterilization is, as far as I have seen, always on there, and that makes sense. And then now it becomes somewhat clearer what would be substantial. If those things are changing, then it would be substantial. So the notified body as well could have some means in terms of controlling what is substantial with adding information to the certificate, because that the freedom is with the notified body, and that's being suggested with the update of the MDR as well. The allowance to extend to have every 2 years a surveillance assessment, but based on the manufacturer's performance, whether that can be trusted that that is okay to do every 2 years. So all of this can be identified on the certificate, and that's where the dialogue and the conversation and negotiation has to take place. The last piece I need to mention is the contract with your notified body. Please check your contract with your notified body. However, that should only contain what is legally required and not anything else. Having all these confusions, it did lead to an update of the MDR, but it's not in the section of Annex 2.4, Annex 9 2.4, but in the area of the notified body. And the procedure, and it is clearly stated, the procedure and contractual arrangement referred to the first paragraph shall clearly distinguish between changes that do not need to be reported, that need to be reported without requiring prior approval, and that require prior approval. And then here, in accordance with the documented procedure, the notified body in question shall, where changes require prior approval, and it now identifies what they are supposed to do. So that's where the guidance come into play, and what is already there, what is here is probably already maybe considered in the future. Ensure manufacturers submit prior approval plans for changes as referred to in first subparagraph, relevant information relating to such changes, assess the change proposed and verify that these changes and so forth. It basically repeats what was in the middle section and notify the manufacturer of its decision and provides report as applicable, a supplement report which will contain justified conclusion of this assessment. But the section for Annex 9 still applies. So not only a supplement report, but as well a supplement to the certificate. So the supplement report needs to have this information. And here the last piece is interesting, where appropriate, the notified body and the manufacturer shall agree on predetermined change control plan, enabling the manufacturer to implement changes in accordance with such a plan without prior information. That's AI. That's artificial intelligence aspects to have changes which are being envisioned. The AI made it on its own, that it stays in its area, that it can do the changes and does not need to be approved. Every single aspect does not need to be approved by the notified body. So if everything is sort of like clearly now understood, then hopefully the finish line is a success, and we then have no issues here with the notified body communication. So the recommendation is really to assess what is on your certificate, what is the minimum contact, Annex 12, previous guidance may be taken into consideration, but clearly make yourself clear what information you would like to inform the notified body, what are not what you would like, but what are substantial, clear outline that within your procedure, and a couple of tests may be provided to the notified. Here are our substantial changes, please approve. If they come back and say not approved, no supplement is being issued, then the area what needs to be, where the notified body needs to be informed, are very clear. So if there's any questions, concerns, we are certainly wishing you all the best as you continue your MDR, IVDR journey. Please contact us for further clarification. Thank you very much. So Carla, are there any questions?
Not at the moment, but thank you for this really interesting presentation and the takeaway and the attitude to be at least to be considered towards your notified body. So I think that's very helpful for manufacturers. So if you have any questions, if you have some specific questions, feel free to write on chat. We are here to support, maybe give some examples. But we can start with like yesterday we also have a webinar on the same topic for the other side of the world. Let's say it like that. At the end of the day, Ludger, you mentioned some examples of what could be like the most common examples of what could be a substantial change. If you want to also give some ideas here again.
Oh yeah. So additional ideas. So what is on your certificate? The authorized representative is on your certificate, and if the authorized representative changes, is certainly considered substantial. He plays a pivotal role with the manufacturer. That is our role, but they're never being audited, right? And they are being checked. The contract may be checked by the notified body. And if you plan to change the authorized representative, now I need to be very careful. Don't change on us, right? If you're our client, if anybody from outside and wants to come to us, we will guide you through the process. The notified body needs to be informed of it, and a supplement to the certificate identifying the new authorized representative certainly needs to be issued. But also there has been time delays with the certificate issuance, and for quite some time, a previous authorized representative was listed on the certificate, which is all fine for the time being. That is not such a big deal as long everything is correctly identified on the declaration of conformity, and as well the plans are in place, and notified bodies with the previous timelines taking 3-6 months to issue a certificate upon approval, upon recommendation, just was unheard of. That will change. I think yesterday was a question in terms of how long notified bodies are supposed to have time to respond, and I have not looked at that new implementing act, but I know that notified bodies are very upset about this, and rightly so. The timelines are really tight for notified bodies. That will change quite a bit the feedback you will receive from your notified body. The processes need to be streamlined. And I would believe the notified bodies do have the resources in place to do that right now. Deadlines are approaching, so be mindful of that. That may be different again. I'm being asked in terms of, so that's the timeline. So you may look at that. It starts beginning of next year. Some notified body announced that they're doing it already today. I want to make sure that they are ahead of the game and use it as marketing purpose. Beautiful, and that's competition. The competition comes back, and notified bodies. That's something I'm actually surprised, because it's a competitive field, and that this needs to be regulated is something very interesting, because we strive on being responsive to our clients. I think that's what we are well known for, that we get back to our clients quickly within 24 hours, and if there's if everything works all right, and get our feedback to clients within 15 days or 5 days if being asked for. So that's a competitive aspect, which certainly will now being applied under being regulated, which is a big surprise to me. Changing notified body, and that maybe has to do with that, is more difficult, and therefore it's being regulated. But otherwise, if there's a competitive field, things like that should not need to be regulated. Don't need to be regulated. It will, after everything calms down and the resources are in place, it would resolve on its own. And yeah, that's the aspect. Any questions? I see the chat is read with me, so no.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Yes, we have a question. Yeah, we have a question now on the chat. Class 1 is products. So we would be required to report plan changes on these products for prior approval only for aspects relating to final packaging and sterilization, correct?
Yeah, that's a big question. Maybe, maybe not, because what is listed on your certificate, if that is being, so yeah, may need to look at the contract. but the certificate, so the conformity assessment procedure, the logic, the conformity assessment procedure is specifically to that, to the sterilization aspect of the product. So that means Annex IX, these aspects are being verified, that the changes can be done, changes to the product, or everything can be done. The conformity assessment procedure accordingly is being verified, audited by the notified body. So changes to these products, to report plan changes on these products or for prior approval only for aspects relating to final packaging and sterilization. Correct. So now the question is, what is on your certificate? Is the sterilization is being done outside? Is the sterilization provider is changing? If the sterilization method is being identified and that changes, and it becomes crystal clear immediately what needs to be notified, what and I want to always use the term, the notified body needs to be informed of, is derived from the certificate. And the minimum content of the certificate and the notified body has the means to add if they would not necessarily trust the manufacturer doing that. What I would recommend here is, and those changes probably happen more often, to submit them as substantial. And if you get a supplement to the certificate, then you know they were substantial. If you don't receive a supplement to the certificate, then they were not substantial. If you get a no, if they consider it substantial, then it needs to be changed. I'm sure the notified body auditor will tell you differently, because he comes with the highest risk class product where those kinds of aspects certainly will have to be notified, right? So class 3 products, the technical file is being reviewed, and there is a lot of aspects which go on the technical file certificate. So you may get, it would be good to have a conversation with the notified body. However, I would not ask, do we need to submit this? Because you probably get an answer, and then the answer is yes, and you get not a supplement. How can you now argue that you will not have to inform them in the future? Right? So information is based on the regulation. Submit substantial if it affects the certificate, because only what affects the certificate needs a supplement to the certificate, what is on there or what should have been on there. And as I said, the control of a manufacturer can take place via the certificate. Limitation may be indicated. So would this be, if I would be the notified body auditor, I guess I would say, let's see whether the conformity assessment is going to be good enough, and we're going to check that, and then that you can do those changes in the future without informing us. And here, again, the recommendation to submit this as a substantial change, see what is the feedback, and implement that in your procedure accordingly. If there's not a supplement to the certificate, future changes would not need to be informed, because you would have a great example for future changes in this area.
Crystal clear. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I think it becomes, over time, it should be crystal clear. So the concern I have here, that a lot of notified body auditors, what I hear, are in the area of old guidance documents and do not consider really what is written in the MDR today. And then there's another piece of the thing. Notified body auditors tend to believe everything. I don't talk with a talk by a notified body or a notified body representative. I don't know what is more, but I'm sure that it's more in the MDR. And I'm like, no, I don't think there is more to do. So, what can I say? In many areas, there is not more to do. The essential requirements for low-risk class products and the new general safety and performance requirements, they have not changed for the low-risk class products. And if things need to be substantially updated, maybe that was not there before, right? So let's be clear on that, and may have been not looked at. So there are no other questions, and we are quite good with our time, right?
Yes, we still have a couple of minutes left. So
Yeah.
there is no other questions. But I would like to bring and to pick your brain, Mutger, from previous conversations. And like you mentioned, what if the contract with the notified body between the manufacturer and the notified body goes beyond in terms of requirements of what is written on the MDR? Because we also had cases like that with our clients. What would be your recommended approach on that?
Oh, yes. So if you, so the contract, what I'm stating here. So there are the requirements, the 2 points which I mentioned here. In form of substantial changes need to be approved, and the notified body needs to be aware of products which are being placed on the market. Those kinds of things are the guidance, and that's it. And selection of the notified body or contract is hopefully as well can be negotiated. And then those contracts can be updated, because a contract from a notified body should only contain what is required and not more. And so the overall thing is, with the change which is being proposed, I have a stomach ache actually, which gives the freedom to the notified body to ask for more. Just go what is written in the clauses, in the articles, what is needed. And that's what should be reflected in the contract and not more. If somebody decides that I would like to have my notified body doing more, then we are already getting to the area of consulting. And that becomes a very difficult aspect. We really need to put our foot down to stick to the requirements, and only that. The notified bodies is not a registrar which can expand the scope left and right, etc., etc. Now the certificate needs to be precise. The product scope, product range needs to be indicated, and that's what the freedom is given to the manufacturer to produce, to design products. So therefore, the only what is required and not more, because that costs a lot of money. Nobody would think of doing more for the FDA. Or what's the point, right? So the contract with the notified body, but again, if you would like the notified body to utilize for some things and they would agree to that, it's perfectly fine. They need to be very, very, very mindful not to consult, right? There's a question I see.
Yes.
So thank you very much, Carla, for asking that, because I think that's an important aspect. Should the procedure SOP include a description of substantial change and requiring notification to the notified body? Should the SOP include a description of substantial changes required? So it will be difficult to a description of substantial changes. The procedure currently, and it's going to be deleted, but there is certainly the requirements under the QMS requirements of Article 10 that there must be a procedure for dealing with your notified body, with your authorized representative and other economic operators. That's where it's being located. But it's also in the design process. So what needs, absolutely, it needs to be in there, but not the description of the substantial changes, which goes back, is there a definition of a substantial change? No, there should be, the process should be, okay, we will determine substantial changes based on the following aspects. Certificate, Annex 12. We take other guidance into consideration. However, the guidance is if there is going to be the chance that a supplement to the certificate is needed. And that's what needs to be described in the SOP. And yes, I strongly recommend to have the procedure in place, because that's the procedure the notified body should audit, and that should give you confidence that you are not running into the area of, in the bias of, if you do not inform us, you run into the risk and we are going to, I have not heard so far. I did hear that notified bodies stated that they identify substantial changes where they were not notified about. But there have been no certificate being suspended based on that. I have never experienced that. So the threat is there, but it's also handled accordingly. It can be a major deviation which needs to be taken care of quickly. And that's would be. However, I assume that those made substantial changes in most cases, based on what I hear from notified body, were not substantial, because if, again, no supplement was issued, it's not substantial. And the communication between an auditor and a manufacturer is fine. It's a great dialogue, but substantial changes need this supplement approval. And the supplement approval is affecting the certificate, goes through the certification process with the notified body. That's substantial. So yes, get it in your procedure, but don't try to describe substantial. The process, first sentence and last sentence, they need to come together. Very good.
Thank you. So I think we are on time. So I would like to thank everyone that joined us today, and to Ludger for also for the presentation, for the speaking, and all these tips that I think everyone needed nowadays to have a little bit of an input on these very discussed substantial changes or not on the regulation. So again, thank you very much. We'll have an additional webinars, online seminars that we are going to present next month on economic operators. That's one that is upcoming, and what are exactly the exact requirements that are bestowed on each economic operator, mainly the difference between manufacturer requirements and importer requirements, because there's still a big discussion on this topic. So keep an eye on that. The invitation was already out. So join, register today, and then we'll receive the link on your calendar. And yeah, we'll have more additional webinars up to come that will be published. So keep an eye also on our website and our newsletters to keep being informed of the future information that we are publishing. So again, on time. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ludger, and have a nice day. And I hope to see you guys on the next seminar. Thank you, and have a nice day then. Bye.
Bye-bye.